Dare I ask, who's having a good time? Yes, it's Panto, hooray! Sorry, I shouldn't have started that. Right, this is the big talk of the day you've all been waiting for. I'm thrilled to say that we have not only Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone, the creators of Fighting for Fantasy and the authors of the Warlock Of Firetop Mountain, we also have Geraldine Cooke, who commissioned the book in the first place. And the twisted mind of Russ Nicholson that created a fantastic article. So without further ado, I'll stop talking and hand over to these fantastic people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Unfortunately, this thing's over here. But can we move it over here a little bit or not? With it, and use the clicker. Oh, it's okay. Right. Well, we'll have to do tag team presentation. Okay, we're going to talk about how Final Fantasy came about. We're not going to go do the whole history of Games Workshop this time. We're going to go straight into the meat because we've got some fantastic people here to talk to you about it. But first of all, we're going to change history a little bit. We've previously said that it was as a result of Games Day 1980 that Steve and I first met Geraldine. But no, it's not true. It's 1979, and Steve is going to tell us how that correction, the date, came about.
Going to come over there?
Yeah, I think you might need to. I'll do the slides. Okay, I'll do the slides. You see a letter behind you, which is dated.
Right, now this is the earliest thing. I've just been going through the old archives of Final Fantasy and Games Workshop, because there's a book coming out called The Dice Men, which with all this stuff is, well, there's 283 pages of all things like this. We've always said that this all came together at Games Day in 1980. And I found this letter from Geraldine, which is dated 19th of December 79. Not a big deal, an extra year, but let's get the record straight, and there's the evidence. So it must have been Games Day in 1979. Anyway, Geraldine was interested in the idea, but she still wasn't quite sure how it worked, how to do the whole thing. It seemed a bit strange. And
Geraldine to comment on her letter, now she's seen it for the first time.
It was the other Geraldine Cooke. It was the other one. The other Geraldine Cooke, I think. The literate one. It's not a bad letter, actually. Come to think of it, it must be mine. Good signature, yes. No, it's PP. Somebody else has signed it.
So anyway,
my assistant.
with this letter in hand, we got to work on doing some sort of a proposal that Geraldine could take to her bosses, and she was very keen on this idea.
But not before.
But no, not before. Now this is one that I sent back in response to that, saying this is how it'll go. Way too long, but there was it, and that was just January 1980. So the next one, anyway, was 1980 January, and it progressed to. This is the synopsis that I did up for Geraldine, which is put together as mainly an illustration, a little spread of illustrations. So this Warlock, although it was called 3 different names before it became Warlock, this one was the graphic version, and you had a choice of, you can see the choice of 2. There's some text at the top to tell you what to do, and the monsters. These were actually taken from one of TSR's monsters, we shouldn't have done at the time, but it served its purpose. It was good, and with the options down at the bottom. Now we're getting a bit fed up with Geraldine, with the best will in the world, was trying to get it through the editors and not having much success. And we decided, oh, this is a good idea, Penguin aren't interested in it, so we wrote to George Allen and Unwin, who were the publishers of The Lord of the Rings. This surely was the sort of thing that they would like. Anyway, they didn't like it at all. So we had another rejection.
The idea was to make an interactive Lord of the Rings adventure, but thankfully they rejected that idea, which is a great saving, God-saving for us. Otherwise, Final Fantasy might never appear. We've become effectively employees of George Allen Unwin. So we dodged a bullet with them rejecting the proposal.
So this, wrong way. Oh, there it is. Ah, right, this is Tony Lacey had taken over, and he actually got things moving. This is 2 years on, 1982. The Magic Quest. He was ready to sign up, which is a great occasion for us. Next one.
You should say that was Puffin by now. Tony was the head of Puffin.
Oh, that's right. How did it go?
Well, it was because I am an adult, believe it or not. I don't like to say adult publishing, do you? So,
I'd like to read it.
Keep it between us. It's just that, I was working in Penguin. Puffin, as you all know, is the children's arm of Penguin, and seeing Tony's signature there makes me remember that it took all that time being rejected at the Penguin editorial meetings for nearly over a year. It worked its way down to the very bottom of the minutes, and it never came off. Everybody used to groan when it would come up. And then the famous story about Peter Mayer, actually a great publisher, and probably saved Penguin, roaring and laughing at the very idea. In fact, he lay down on the table, he was laughing so much. This was the man that was later to ask you to play tennis. After it was hugely successful.
Peter Mayer was the managing director of Penguin Books, and he laughed so hard.
Marvellous, great
He his head
man.
on the table about the idea of an interactive book.
He did. And it was Tony at the time was the publishing director of Puffin, where Philippa worked. So I had taken it to Puffin, just to explain, because Tony later has only just retired himself from being the head of an arm of Penguin. Sorry, I just thought...
But I'd just like to say one more time, without Geraldine, we also would have had Fighting Fantasy, but it was her dogged determination that, against all odds, fought off these naysayers and said this will succeed, and landed in Puffin to appeal to a younger audience. So just have one more little round of applause.
We finally got from Tony Lacey a contract, and there it is, from the 4th day of January 1982, again, a book called The Magic Quest. Magic Quest was eventually going to turn on to be Warlock of Firetop Mountain, but there were a couple of other names that we used. One of them was the, oh goodness, what's this? There was one of them called the Sorcerer's. No. Anyway, it was
Sorcerer's memory loss?
Anyway, there was a sorcerer in it.
Let's go to the Magic Quest. The next one is a slide from me. When I started, as you all know, Warlock of Firetop Mountain was split into two. I wrote everything before the river, and Steve wrote everything after the river, including the hideous maze, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. So this is just one slide of the manuscript, and of course, to Steve's great credit, because we had quite diverse styles, he rewrote the whole thing to make it a fluid style of Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Anyway, that was that. This is my map up to the river. And then
You follow it?
And then that Steve has had a copy of, and then he started to create that was the original adventure sheet. And then back onto Steve, redoing the front bit in a consistent style And over back to you, Steve.
I needed to have everything spelled out for me, drunken orcs and snake in box and things like that. And this was effectively the first half, and the next slide shows the rest of it. This was above the...
Very clear.
There's not a lot happening in the maze of Dagor up there, which seemed to have stunned a lot of people.
What happened here?
Go away.
Here's the maze.
This is the maze of Dagor, which you got cameras, you might.
It's much clearer now. It's a lot easier now you've got the map.
And the next is... Oh, and then the combination of the keys. This is just sort of part of the workings out of the combination of 3 keys, which would finally, there was only one combination which would get you through to the Warlock's treasure. I do believe it might have been 101, I can't remember. And the next one is...
Next one is next book, which is the Saviour's Book of Mental Torture.
The whole thing worked out.
Talk us through it, Steve.
Remember! Well, it made sense to me at the time, and this, of course, is the one from the 25th anniversary of Warlock, and a decent drawing. Spoiled, pardon my handwriting on this. And this is similar to Ian's, but there were four different sheets for Warlock with the actual numbers in. Okay.
And then let's get on to the art.
Yeah. Well, the art had to be commissioned. Russ was commissioned. And your background was in what sort of art before fantasy? This is Russ's artwork.
So I'm going to show just a few of Russ's illustrations, which you're all familiar with, of course, the iconic Zagor there. And the picture behind Russ, you can't see, is a picture of himself. So I'll just go through these without his commentary, and then I'd love to hear Russ talk us through how he set about, from our original writings, to interpret it so wonderfully and create an atmosphere I don't think has ever been replicated since.
I especially like the ghoul. I thought that was really good.
Your original description was a ghoul. When I read it, I thought, oh my God, I can't do that. Right. And so I toned it down. But what you put in the book is later what you rewrote. Oh, sorry, it's not hockey.
It needs to be close to now.
Let's call it Mike first.
I'm brain dead. I'm sorry. Yes, the ghoul was... I think that the main thing I can say about the ghoul is that a friend of mine, afterwards when it was being published, said they'd seen an article in one of the main newspapers, and they said that there is an illustration in a book for children, which is the worst, most disgusting, horrible picture ever printed. That's it.
I mean, there was an awful, we've probably told you this before if you've been here to this before, but there was an incredible opposition to the books when they first came out. The Evangelical Alliance published an 8-page warning guide about them saying, because you're interacting with ghouls and demons, you're bound to get possessed by the devil. A worried housewife in deepest suburbia phoned her local radio station and said, having read one of our books, her son levitated. So the thinking for £1.50. The local vicar at Penguin Books threatened to chain himself to Penguin Books railings until they were banned. There were petitions sent in from worried parents, and we still have those petitions and their addresses of these people. Taking the book, send them to us. They were burnt actually in South Africa, so there was incredible opposition because they were worried that children were being consumed by these books rather than thinking, hey, this is actually good. Kids are reading again, and actually over time they were using classical reluctant readers and was proven to increase literacy by nearly 20% because of their empowerment through learning by doing. So anyway, enough preaching about it, but back to our wonder artist. Russ, it was poison, it was really poison in kids' minds.
A little bit better, I apologise. Yes, as far as the books are concerned, one of the things I was actually teaching in a school at the time, and because I couldn't make a living at illustration, I wasn't blaming you in the slightest. And a friend who'd gone to a conference came back and said, do you want to hear what I've just heard about your book? And I said, the book? He said, yeah, the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. And he said, I've been talking to an awful lot of teachers who teach dyslexic or remedial students, and they have been enthused, especially the boys, into wanting to read because of your pictures. And that gave me a great deal of pleasure, it really did. Right. But originally I was actually commissioned to do the colour cover as well. Have you?
Yeah, in your handwriting.
Oh,
Mr.
right.
Mr. Khan. Should we have the one show some of the pictures, some of the art that wasn't used in Firetop Mountain? Steve's managed to unearth some rather faded photocopies, but nevertheless, here they are. These are unused heroes.
Oh, yes. Yes, they were 4 of them. And the idea originally was that I was commissioned with black and white work to do 4 heroes in some sort of, sorry, I'm doing it again, some sort of dangerous situation. And so I did those. One of them was lost because I left it. I lent it to a BFS publication, who then the publisher said, "Oh, we've lost it," and I was very angry and said, "Well, pay me for it." And they said, "No, not our fault. It was lost in transit." And the reason why they were dropped was because by then you'd come up with a slogan, "You are the hero."
That's right. These 4, we can see another 3 of them, all showed the hero, and by that time we decided that the reader was going to be the hero. We weren't going to be going through one of these heroes' adventures. So that's why they're unused heroes.
Yes, long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago. Yes, but on the colour work, during that time, I can't remember who, but there were 4 editors I dealt with. Yes, it was Puffin, yes.
Probably Philippa.
No, not Philippa. Philippa I didn't get into discussion until I came back from Papua New Guinea. And so we had a great conversation and we came back into the books because I asked her if I could do some more. Because originally Puffin dropped me on book 3, which Malcolm Barker did a lovely job on, because I was going abroad and they said, "Oh, the artwork will be lost." Now at that time I was also doing work for B.C. Thompson and Giddle's Comics. I was a Bunty artist. And I was a Tracy one as well. And all the time I was in Papua New Guinea, I was sending artwork back and none of it was lost. But I was, well, let go. But the 4 artists, the original cover, I remember I've actually found it. And the comment that came back from that editor at the time was, it was too Disney-esque. Right?
Next slide.
Is it? Okay, good.
No, it's not. It might be here somewhere. This is not too Disney, is it?
So Ian wears glasses and Steve Disney.
So this is 1982. The clue is in the Huffing stock list behind Steve's left hand. The t-shirt, Games Day 82.
And that's actually when I got the artwork back, 1982, July.
Well, at least you got it back, stop complaining, eh?
I'm not complaining.
Let's see what's up next. And then, I've got a couple of reunion shots. 10th anniversary with Geraldine. With Liz Attenborough and Richard Scrivener. And Steve Musgrave. Got any comments about that one, Geraldine?
Well,
Are you feeling pretty pleased at that point? 10 years?
Sorry?
Pretty
It
successful
was,
by now.
yes, it had to reprint, hadn't it, within, I mean, originally it had to reprint within the first 3 months or something, and had got the first book, so it was beginning to, by then, obviously, you can tell by the expressions on there, Steve looks a bit plump. However, the head of Puffin by now was the great Liz Attenborough, and she looked pretty pleased, I think, with it, and it was terribly good, and I was pleased because she made me an honorary member of the Puffin Club. I was allowed.
No, we weren't.
You. You were just the authors.
Never a truer words spoken by a publisher. We are just the authors. Without whom they'd be really successful. Then time starts to begin to ravage. 20th anniversary. Penguin were gone. They dumped us in 1995, but we're delighted that Icon Books picked up the
You only
series.
sold sort of millions and millions, so what else did you expect?
It just
It's crazy.
spurned us like rabid dogs. And then Icon picked them up. This is 2002. When they first picked them up in 2000, I think. This is the 25th anniversary in 2007. Now, quite a collector's item now. I don't know how many people have got the hardback edition of Warlock, but there's an awful lot of good
Here
content.
today, I've seen one.
And then 2017.
I have signed a couple, so over the day.
With our third publisher, Scholastic, with whom we are still today. Lots of foreign editions. They were published in 35 countries, 25 languages. We have some pretty good artists as well around the world. With American editions. Multiple UK covers. Those are the Puffin covers, these are the Icon covers, and here's the Scholastic cover. Lots of little bits of merchandise. Steve's Warlock Of Firetop Mountain game. You want to talk to us about that, Steve? These really high quality miniature figures.
I can't speak that quickly. Yeah, no, this is, I guess it was pretty much modelled entirely on the path through the book itself. The only thing that was particularly different about it was the name of Zagor, which was a lot easier to get through, I think.
There's a close-up of, there he is, what a guy. And of course, Zagor's looking a little bit different these days, thanks to Atlantis. Warlock's appeared, of course, in digital format as that, also on Switch. And who knows where this is going to be the 40th anniversary classic edition. This is the 2030 edition, the 2040 edition. So I hope you kind of get advance orders for those. We've only got a few minutes left, so I think we'll switch over with a full colour ghoul. Thanks, Russ. If you've got any questions, now's the time to fire them off. Have we got our runner? That'll be John Green running around.
By the way, while John's doing this, I do remember the 2 extra titles that were in between the Magic Quest, or before the Magic Quest. One of them was called Demon Cliff Caverns, which was the one with the TSR artwork.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one was the Sorcerer's Sanctuary. Remember that?
No. What about the age of the war? Okay.
Going back to your initial contract, the letter said that you got 7.5% royalties. So were you actually writing the book on spec in the hope that you were going to gain royalties, or was there an advance as well? Or were you just going to use it as an advance?
But they were miserable.
I think the first advance we ever got was for £310.
But in old money, that was quite a lot, wasn't it?
Worth 25,000 in today's currency.
It was a lot. But mostly didn't pay the authors at all. I never got paid for the book I did, so I thought, well, I'd pay the rest of them.
That's kind.
Hi. Many authors write themselves into their own work, and obviously the FF canon is quite large. Have you written yourselves into any of your books, or do you see yourselves as a particular character in them?
Not as a character, but as a piece of art. I think I'm put myself in about 7 or 8 books. Yeah, I'm fancy, I'm sorry.
I'm not quite as great as it was in
There's
the
one-
Fantastic Chancellor.
That's right. Yeah, the one-armed guy in Death Trap Dungeon, Penguin Edition, Prisoner with Moustache, that was me. And several others you can find. That should be a quiz question this time.
And at what point did you realise that fighting fantasy was big, going to be really big?
But we heard from Tony that they were reprinting. They did the first print run of 10,000, and we're rushing through 20,000. I mean, they were just taken aback by it.
They were slow at first.
I mean, that was huge then. We're talking children's books,
Yeah.
which were always, I mean, there was always this rubbish talked about. Publishers were going around saying things like, the children's books don't sell. I've actually had that said to me in an editorial meeting to do with something else that came along later. Well, how long, you know.
But they didn't sell, despite Geraldine's backing within Penguin, the sales force didn't understand, because they just looked like a normal book. So they did, when they saw it broken into different paragraphs, they didn't understand what it was. And there was pretty minimal marketing. So yeah, we had to rely on word of mouth. So it just sprung up in different pockets around the country, and there was pockets linked, and it became a phenomenon. But they were still doing pretty low print runs until one day, I think Joe came on the phone and said, we need 2 more. So there was chaos for us to do. So we couldn't, it was actually a nightmare writing the first one together. That's why Steve had to rewrite the combined thing to make a consistent style.
Philip asked for that, didn't
Yeah,
she?
she hated it. Yeah. So,
She hated Steve's book.
no. Yeah. No, so we had to write 1 each because to keep up with the demand and also to have a consistent style. So.
We were given a month. And you come up with numbers 2 and 3 in a month's time.
It shows you just how successful they were. Obviously, they're by now sales and the bookshops, and then you like yourselves actually wanted them, and it was showing through in the sales.
Yeah. And they became, international bestsellers. 82 to 86, 87, all over the world. It was amazing. We had some incredible time author tours. Japan, remember that?
Yeah, do you remember?
I remember the day people came to talks that were laden with gifts. Piece of paper.
I actually have a message from the panel from my mum. She said, because she found out I was coming to this, and she said, make sure they're aware that at 8 years old you wouldn't read anything. And that
Is that still the case?
Well, it actually is, because I'm a BBC journalist now. But she's adamant that at 8 years old there was nothing around for boys 8 to 10 to read and engage in and to enjoy. And I've now relived that and understand it far more now. I have 8 to 10-year-olds myself, and although they have to wear white gloves and I turn the pages for them, but please don't underestimate what you created. I'm sure from attending a group of nerds like ourselves, I say it in a loving way, you appreciate that. But more than anything, 2 months ago, we had Fighting Fantasy Night at my scout group that I ran, and I took Scorpion Swamp, I took Warlock, and I took Temple of Terror, and I each gave them in 3 groups and saw what they could do, and it was great seeing young people still engaging in what you created almost 40 years ago.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Geraldine, can I just say, because I don't think it gets said enough, you are the heroine. Because, I think obviously...
The morphine.
I think quite often, obviously the authors get a lot of attention, the artists get a lot of attention, but I think we all do owe it to you to have taken a punt on this idea. And can I ask, at the time, were you genuinely concerned that possibly your job might have been on the line by sticking your neck out and backing it?
Well, it was unusual to keep on and on about one particular thing. You know, most people did. I mean, editors, you know, if you haven't got passion, you don't believe in the book you're trying to bring up and talk about, who else is going to take it up? So you've always got that at the back of your mind. But funnily enough, later on, I did get sacked for trying to persuade a company that I worked for to buy an author, and that author was Andrea Levy, who's now just died, and she's one of the great writers, you know, of our modern times. Sadly, her book Small Island came on at the National just after she died. But you know, I was told for various things that I can't repeat here because they're too awful about certain people not reading books. And I just think, you know, as editors, readers, publishers, I'm now a library campaigner, you just have to keep on going. And you know, if you get sacked or you get stuck somewhere because you've been demonstrating, well, tough.
You might find the reason why you were so keen on signing us up is that we only cost you £310.
It was a lot of money, and it was a lot of money for a children's book, seriously spoken, wasn't it? And also, Tony, you know, and the, you know, the people that were actually giving the money, shelling the money out, didn't believe in it quite as much as, you know, those of us. I wasn't doing the contracts at that point. You had to get the permission, so it was probably not bad. I mean, honestly, the book I did for Penguin, we didn't get paid at all, and it became a #1 bestseller, a little book about stopping smoking. So I know how it feels to feel as if you should have got more. I understand that.
Now we've got a question from the new generation. And these are the people we're really interested in. We don't actually care about.
How long did it take you to complete the Warlock of Firetop Mountain?
To write it or to complete it?
To complete it.
It was easy to complete it.
How long did it take you to write it?
That took probably about 6 months altogether.
It was an iterative process because we didn't have any given rule. No, I've got it. I've just got a natural thought. So we didn't have consistent rules. We debated a lot what the system should be. We had differences of opinion on the terminology, differences on some of the monsters things. So we had to get a consistent style and rule set. So obviously numbers 2 and 3 became a lot easier. But 6 months probably for the first one, and as Steve said, we had to do the second one in just over a month. But on average, I'd say it took about 2 months. These days, it takes at least a year. In some cases, longer.
Have you ever tried making a book where one person can play as a monster monster, and another person can play the hero, and eventually at one point they meet.
I'll just write that one down.
There is a book called the Clash of the Princes, which is for a two-player game. Sorry?
If one person could play as the monster and another as the hero, and they could meet at one point, say the monster's the boss, the person who's playing this monster can become the boss.
Yeah. You know Creature of Havoc? The monster is the boss in that one. Yeah, there it is.
You play as a creature. That's quite a good idea, actually, that one person gets a creature and tries to make it tougher over time by getting more strength and skill by eating people like you. And the other person's a humanoid, and then ultimately they kind of level up, and then ultimately they meet together. Oh, well, I'm fine for it now. Thank you, it's a great question.
Do we have any budding artists in the young community here? Anybody that likes finding fancy art? No? Okay.
Well, I want to ask something about the art actually. When you got the pictures from Russ for the Warlock, and throughout the book, did you rewrite any of the text based upon Russ's pictures, or did you, when you got them, did you ask for changes, or was it exactly what you hoped would be?
How could we ask Russ to change his masterpieces? It's gone wandering around.
There weren't any changes as far as that book was concerned. There were a few in the second book, Citadel of Chaos. Primarily though, actually, I think that the main change as far as I was concerned was, if you remember, I mentioned that the very first colour rough I did was too Disney-esque, because he was all red and he had a sort of floppy hat. A bit like a gnome, really. And I hadn't really nailed what I thought the Warlock should look like. And it was literally about halfway through the book of doing the illustrations and drawing them away, because I had a very tight deadline, which is the reason why I gave up the cover, which that present editor was delighted with, because he got his favourite science fiction illustrator to do, and I didn't mind. And halfway through, he came. I don't know where it came from, it just popped into my head. And that is the drawing that I did. So there is a sort of give and take sort of business, and sometimes you have to sort of make small little changes, or you have to rethink things and so on. One of the things which I did challenge, and I'll tell Steve this, he was determined that all of the rooms should be boxes, you know, in a box setting. And I made every effort to break out of the box wherever possible. So some of them, you see them as boxes, quite a few others, there are no boxes at all. As I said, I just felt that was too constricting, and it needed to be broadened out a little. But part of the reason for the style, partly because that's also the way I draw, is because I wanted to create something which was fantastical, which people could relate to, but not necessarily have bad dreams about. Although I was told some people did. Did you? I will say this, I tried actually playing the book itself, actually the game, and after the 8th time of being killed, I gave up.
What? You've not heard of cheating?
I was a teacher, I don't cheat.
John, you're the master of this time schedule. Have we got 3 more minutes?
One more question.
No, 3!
Three more questions.
I'm not quite sure of the timing. How much influence did you have from Gary Gygax's Dungeons and Dragons, or was it the other way around? Do you happen to know the history of that?
Gary had a huge, obviously, influence on us, because we started distributing Dungeons and Dragons in 1975. We got to meet the great man many times, and we played D&D obsessively. So that can play D&D with rich, interesting comics and science fiction books, all that kind of swirl around. And we put our own spin in it, but trying to distill the essence of D&D, of a role-playing game, replacing the Dungeon Master with a book to give the flavour of role-playing, but obviously a lot more portable in the shape of the book. So undoubtedly it was a huge influence. The genre, particularly for me, Steve chose other genres as well, but I just love that sort of medieval, fancy world, dark, horrible world of monsters and magic. You can say something if you like.
Hi, this is to Ian and Steve. I went to the show last time and I saw that Japanese cover for Death Trap Dungeon, and
Yes.
I was just wondering, were there I was just out of curiosity, were there any other books? Were there any other books drawn like that, or were just wondering how many?
Quite a few, about 6. The original publishers in Japan was Shakai Hiyosha, who did faithful reproductions of the UK versions. But when they dropped, this other company, now name forgotten, came in and did those. And they made them, rather than being first person, they made them third person. And so you had to play the role usually of a very young anime character. And I can get the Death Trap Dungeon cover up on my laptop if anyone's curious. Everybody interested while you're asking this question? This very strange.
Okay, last question then, I think, for now. Have you thought about putting Warlock of Firetop Mountain on Netflix? Because my son's discovered Bear Grylls is doing a Choose Your Own Adventure on Netflix at the moment. It's a serialized thing, and basically you can make a movie out of Warlock of Firetop Mountain by having different choices along the way.
We've thought about this many times. We've been trying to get someone to represent our case to Netflix. Charlie Brooker's credited us with his creation of Bandersnatch. Netflix are aware of it, but we just ain't had the call. So if you're plugged into Netflix, please speak up on our behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Ask another question. I have to find this other.
One bonus question. Oh, right here, there we go.
It's just a question for Steve. Any updates on the new book?
I must be going. I guess the answer to that is no. It's probably about halfway written. A lot of the ideas for the rest of it are out, but it'll take some time. Maybe the next Fighting Fantasy Fest.
Just while Ian's getting that image up, I'd remind you that after this, Steve and Ian will both be signing at the Scholastic Books table. But I would also warn you now that we'll need to stop that signing line at 2, because Steve's going to go and watch House of Hell live, which I think is fair enough. Well, that's not that well. But there will be another signing opportunity later on in the day. Any luck, Ian, or should we do another question?
I don't know the question. I'm just enjoying it.
Other than that.
What was, in your mind, what was better? Designing board games originally?
No, it's not doing workshop. We developed several board games.
So there was the board games, books,
Role-playing games. So
what was the joy?
I love creating board games. It's absolute joy. Anyway, just before we go, typical Death Trap Dungeon covers in many countries. Japan.
And on that note, can I ask you to give a huge round of applause to Russ Nicholson, Geraldine,